Welcome to the Seahawkers podcast with your host, Adam Emmert.
I'd love to draft a tackle and not worry about where I'm going to move him to because he's going to succeed a freaking tackle.
And Brandan Schultz.
Is Steve Keim the Brian Williams of general managers? I say yes. And for that, do better.
Go Hawks!
On a quest to own the West, yippee-ki-yay, we make the ground shake. On game day, 12 men, yeah, feeling it is vital. The Seahawks coming to take division titles.
This is the Seahawkers podcast. I'm Brandan Schultz, member of the Military Seahawkers. Joining me, my good buddy, inaugural member of the Montana Seahawkers, Adam Emmert.
Just sitting here celebrating my 1-0 fandom, Brandan. Just like every other 12 out there, what a way to start the season. Another heart-stopping victory by the Seahawks. Just like we know, they're incredibly consistent, right? And this is what they're going to do. They're going to snooze through three quarters and then turn it on at the end and win a nail-biter. Like, that's the formula, right?
If I could open the show with the intro of that Groundhog Day music, you know, that comes on the radio.
Yeah. And put of the your movie, little hand in mine. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. That's what it feels like. And I don't know why... We shouldn't be surprised by this point, right?
No, I mean, if you are surprised, then you're doing it wrong. You're 12ing wrong because this is how it is. This is the formula, and it is what it is. But hey, it is a win, and thank goodness for that because I had to travel with Jared this weekend down to California, and the Broncos, of course, went on Thursday, and so I had to hear all about how awesome the Broncos were for 3 days until Sunday finally rolled around. Can you imagine how long that 17-hour car ride would have been? Coming home if the Seahawks would have lost.
Yeah, it would have been miserable. And it couldn't have been much better for a Seahawks fan, except for one little minor detail that we'll get to. But in terms of teams and the way they finished, and for the Seahawks to get the win, for the Cardinals to lose to the Patriots at home on their opener, and then for the Rams to get blown out by the 49ers, I don't know if there's a better way this weekend could have gone in terms of the final scores. Of course, the one caveat, Russell Wilson getting injured.
Yeah, that was kind of a bummer, but he seemed to be able to pull through that just fine. You know, the really fun thing about this game, Brandon, this harkens back, this score, 12-10. Like, they scored 12 in their inaugural win of this season in honor of you, the 12s. I mean, undoubtedly, that's why Hauschka had that last extra point block, is just to make sure we stayed on 12.
Oh, yeah, he could have made that. Yeah. He chose not to.
But I want to ask you a question, Brandan. Do you remember the first game of the 2013 season?
I do, and I remember talking about it because it was also a 12-point victory.
Right, 12-9 over Carolina.
12-7.
12-7, I'm sorry. And the thing is, Brandan, what happened in 2013?
We won the Super Bowl. I know, it's kind of a throwback to that.
We're going to the Super Bowl, Brandan. The omen is here, scoring 12 points in your first game and winning in a nail biter. But it was a fun game. A lot of guys really stood out. We have a lot to cover. Got your emails again. I'm sure we have a bunch of those. We're going to talk a little bit with Nate Boyer. What else do we got on tap? The Rams preview. Holy smokes.
Yeah, we have some new milestones for Russell Wilson. We're going to talk about those. An incredible showing by the defense in this game against the Dolphins. Some critical plays by special teams, and we will get into all that and more, including do better and better at life. But yes, Adam, really fortunate the Seahawks were to come away with a win as Russell Wilson leads the team down the field in the final minutes. They get the 12-10 victory over the Dolphins. It was tough to watch. And that 6-3 score, awfully close throughout majority of the game. The Dolphins on their final drive, the second to final drive, they get a touchdown to pull ahead 10-6. And at that point, you knew that the Seahawks were going to have an opportunity, but they hadn't shown it all day that they could just drive the length of the field. 75 yards they go on that final drive. Did you have any doubt that they'd be able to do it?
Massive amounts, all sorts of doubts. Because I'm sitting there in the bar watching this, and Jared's like, oh, how great will it be when you guys lose to the Dolphins? You hate them by a former Broncos coach. Ha, 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 ha. I was like, God, this is going to be the worst, but they got to come through. This is what they do. If they can just have a drive without penalties, they'll probably score a touchdown. And lo and behold, they managed to do it. They convert on 2 4th downs, which was pretty sweet. They And then obviously the pass to Baldwin for the touchdown, which what a dime by Russell Wilson. Just a nice little fade pattern to the back corner of the end zone and on a bad ankle and everything, rallies the team and gets another stat. And we all know what the stat is, right, Brandon? How many fourth quarter comebacks or game-winning drives that you have, or ties or game-winning drives that you have in the fourth quarter? Russell Wilson adds another stat to his career. He has the most of anybody since 2012. It was awesome.
Second down and goal from the 2, no gain. Kristen Michael play fake. Little alley-oop pass to the back corner. Hit Baldwin. Touchdown Seahawks, but he might have pushed off. There's a flag in the end zone. Let's see.
There is no foul for defensive.
No foul. Touchdown Seahawks. Doug Baldwin finds a way to get open. And he scores for the Hawks with 31 seconds left in the game. A 2-yard touchdown, a beauty pass lofted by Russell, and it makes the score 12-10 Seahawks.
Definitely a pretty pass, and listening to Coach Carroll, Doug Baldwin, and Russell Wilson after the game was a really interesting dynamic on that final play because, as it turned out, that wasn't the play that was called. And everybody else, except for Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin, and Jermaine Kearse, they were all playing it as if it were a running play. And there was no visual audible that you could see from Wilson, but there was definitely a signal going because Doug Baldwin, Jermaine Kearse knew exactly what to do. They were a little hesitant to give up exactly what went on among them, but really neat knowing that they have the ability to communicate in that way, to change out to a play that they think is going to work, and they capitalize.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I mean, that entire drive was one that was a work of beauty. I mean, they get the ball with like 4 minutes and change left in the game, something like that. And you hear a lot about the 2-minute offense, but what you don't often hear about is the 4-minute offense. And basically the point of the 4-minute offense is you're not going to just race down the field as quickly as possible and score, then give the ball back to the opposing team with time to come back and do some things. So you saw the Seahawks methodically take it down the field and run it all the way down to a little under 30 seconds for when they kick off the ball for the final possession for the Dolphins, and really give them no chance. So it was beautifully done, capped off with that amazing touchdown pass to Baldwin. Now, the one thing, I don't know if this makes you nervous or not, Brandon, but you're on the 1 or 2 yard line and you just need to punch it in. You've got 3 plays and timeouts, and ended up throwing it on second down again. This time it worked out, but I don't know, man. Like it makes me feel a little funny.
I wanted them to run the ball just 3 straight times, but the fact that they were able to get the touchdown pass definitely made me feel good. With that touchdown pass to Baldwin, that tied Russell Wilson with Jim Zorn at number 3 all time for the Seahawks with 107 career touchdown passes.
Holy cow! Already
tied with Jim Zorn.
Man, the original Seahawk QB. That's pretty amazing, man.
Yeah, Matt Hasselbeck and Dave Craig, the only 2 ahead of him now. Well,
so Russell Wilson did have a touchdown pass, but he did have some not so great plays in this game. Let's talk a little bit about some of Russell's deficiencies in this game. And I think the one that stands out the most to me was that interception. How often do you see him throw a ball like that? That was one of the dumbest decisions I've ever seen him make, easily, hands down.
Yeah, and with the exception of he had a very similar pass in the NFC Championship game a couple of years back against Green Bay in 2014. He was throwing to a spot, and that spot just happened to be where 2 defenders were.
Yeah, there was 3 dudes around this one, man. It was stupid after pirouetting twice and all that. Just throw it away. Just throw the ball away.
And he said he thought he had CJ Prosise down the sideline and thought it was going to be a big play. But it turned out that Prosise was nowhere near the play. I think Luke Wilson was the closest receiver and went way over his head and into the hands of a Dolphins defense.
Right. But like I said, you're not going to see a lot of that out of Russell throughout the season. He's better than that. I think the whole team showed some rust a little bit like that with a few bonehead plays here and there. But overall, the team as a whole played okay. The offense was a bit of a dumpster fire. But again, I think that Dolphins defense is going to prove out to be a top half of the league defense. It's going to be a quality defense rather than a poor defense when it's all said and done. Their secondary played pretty well. They actually had decent coverage for a lot of the game. Yeah, Russell still managed to kind of carve them up. The running game was fairly effective as well. I know a lot of people were saying, Rawls only had this much, and Michael only had 66 yards, but they did top over 100 yards. And I remember games when Beast was playing for us where we top 100 yards just barely, just like that, through a couple guys, Beast leading the way. But as long as you're still effective, that's the entire point, right? I mean, they were able to move the ball and kind of impose their will with the running game for most of the game, I thought.
I just wish they would have run the ball more because they were effective in the times where they chose to do it. I thought Rawls, when he did run the ball, it was in those short yardage type situations where the box was stacked and he was able to, we saw him make a 3rd and 1, which was nice. We were kind of wondering who was going to be that guy that you can hand it to and get a yard or two when you need it. And then on 4th down, you had Michael pick up several yards too, which was nice on that final drive. So really happy to see that. In terms of the amount of runs, I think a lot of people are missing it because they see Russell Wilson with 40+ passing attempts in this game.
Right.
And this was the most that he's ever thrown the ball in a regular season game. And they look at that and they say, oh, the Seahawks now that Beast is gone, they're going to a pass first offense. It's clear because of this game. And I completely disagree. If I'm looking at it as a sign, I don't think it is. They were top 5 in the NFL for both rush attempts and pass attempts in this last game. So they're going to look to be a balanced team. They just happened to throw it a whole lot more in this game. And a lot of that was due to the fact, and I know you're going to like this, Adam, a lot of those passes coming out early on in the first quarter, it was, I think the bubble screen counter broke.
Oh my God. That was the entire passing offense, it felt like, for the first 2 drives. It's just bubble screen, run. Like, what are we doing? Like, how? I know you get a couple yards here and there on those, but just for the life of me, they just aren't an effective play overall. It's just you can't base your offense around that. Thank God they got him out of their system early. Maybe Bevel just wanted to go ahead and call them all real quick in the first 2 drives of the year, and then we can put that away now for the rest of the year. Like, that'd be great.
Well, you would hope so. I don't think that's going away. I think that's something you can count on, much like you count on good tight ends, kind of tearing up the defense. It's going to be something that's going to be in the playbook. It's not going away. So, Adam, you're going to have to get used to it.
Oh, I'm used to it. That's the problem. I'm very, very used to it. Let's talk a little bit more about the rest of the offense, and then let's get to the defense, because I think it's nice to finish on the higher notes, right?
Well, while we're talking about Russell Wilson, I think we should talk about the injury, because early in the third quarter, the Seahawks up 6-3. Wilson drops back, and Sue bears down and just steps on Wilson's ankle as he tried to spin away. Now, it looked like an accident to me. Yeah, I know, Adam, you said it looked accidental to you.
It was clearly accidental. It clearly. You can't, there's no way you can make a case other than he's done it before.
He's got a lot of practice.
That was
He's got a lot of practice, Adam. And how do you practice that? To look like you're doing things effortlessly, you have to practice a lot.
Yeah, well, another way to make it look effortless, when you're not actually trying. And that's exactly what happened there. That was not a dirty play by Sue. Not even close. And anybody who wants to try to pin it that, you just shut up. Like, it's dumb. You're doing it wrong.
Well, the good news about Wilson, it sounds like he's going to be able to practice this week, and that's going to leave, I think, no doubt that he's going to be able to play this weekend. I know Carroll said on Monday that Russell's been dinged up before, and nobody, including teammates and fans, even knew, said he had a high tolerance for pain, and that leads me to believe that I think he's going to be out there.
Yeah, he's going to be out there. There's no doubt about it. I mean, he'd already tweeted out something about seeing you in L.A., and he used emojis, and it was gross. But at least I knew he was going to play. There's no way he's going to not play next week or coming up here this Sunday. I mean, he finished out the game that day on that ankle. I mean, give him a week of rehab and prep and all that. He'll be fine. And he's still a young guy, too. Like, you bounce back pretty quick from that sort of thing, being a young guy. So I thought it was interesting that they put on the tape or the spats on both ankles. And I think that was just so that maybe the defense couldn't quite remember which ankle was the one that was bum, so they couldn't target it. That was my theory on that. I don't know.
No, that's a good point. And Russell said, when I'm 43, 44, 45, That's what I'm going to look like out there. And, hopefully it's looking like how he was on that final drive, because he did look to kind of shake it off. Because there were times in the third quarter where if that's how he looks when he's 43, 44, 45, I don't want to see him out there standing flat-footed and throwing out to the flat, because he looked miserable at points in that game right after the injury.
Well, the third quarter was probably the quarter the offensive line struggled the most in. I felt like the offensive line as a whole played pretty well.
They were okay.
All things considered. Yeah, I mean, they weren't great. They weren't world beaters or anything like that, but they were at least a net neutral as far as their play. Now, the big problem with the offensive line and why it made it tough on Russell in the third quarter was the freaking penalties, man. Yeah. Penalties. How many drives were short-circuited by a penalty or a drop? I mean, it seemed like
they had 2 pre-snap penalties, and I guess it was the holding calls that probably set them back the most.
All the holding calls.
When you're holding, you have to take into account, or is it a good holding call where they're trying to protect Russell even more? I mean, I kind of wish that Gilliam would have held Sue on that play where Sue hit Wilson. But so you kind of have to take it with a grain of salt in that respect.
No, you don't. You don't have to take it with a grain of salt at all. Holding is bad for your offense, period. And I understand
unless your quarterback gets hurt.
There's the rare occasion where you're just trying to keep your quarterback from getting blasted. But, I mean, how many holding calls they have? I lost track. Like, there's not more than one of those.
I think there was only 3 holding calls on the offensive line.
3 and then 2 pre-snap penalties. That's 5 drive killers right there. 5 out of how many possessions you have in a game. Not many. That really does hurt your offense. And the thing is you have Russell Wilson, who is elusive for the most part. You don't need to be holding like that. It's just, it wasn't, the offensive line and the penalties drove me freaking nuts in this game. But the thing is again, this is typical Seahawks, right? This is the way we start out every season. We come out, there's a lot of penalties, things look a little rough, you eke out a win, nobody can tackle. And it's just, that's how they play for about 3 weeks, and then they pick it up another notch, and they pick it up another notch. It's just, it's frustrating to watch, but you also have it in the back of your mind. Okay, so for 4 years, they always seem to keep turning it on. They turn it on as the season goes on. You're just going to have to live it again. Get used to bubble screens, get used to this, because this is how a Pete Carroll team plays every year.
Well, one thing I don't want to get used to, and one thing that I thought was atypical from the Seahawks offense, where were the explosive plays? There were maybe 3 to 4 the entire game. I think that's something that's going to need to change if this team's going to beat the Rams. But on the positive side, Adam, Jimmy Graham makes it on the field.
He does. Had a catch on the last drive as well, so that was cool to see. He was out there blocking. Basically, his first preseason game, right? The idea, just get him out there, get his feet wet, allow him to get hit and knocked around a little bit so he has some confidence in the knee. And that was cool to see. And Thomas Rawls, being out there as well. I thought he looked pretty good as a whole. I know he only had 2.7 yards per carry, but some of those were some short yardage things. But when he did get a chance to have a little space, he showed that burst. He showed that wiggle. He did move the pile on a third down, I believe, or second down late in the game. Just plowed through for 3-4 yards, extra yards. I just carrying guys. He looked great. I really feel good about him beating Gurley in total yardage for the year. It's going to happen. And
let's check the total, because after week 1, Gurley only 47 yards, and that was on 17 carries.
Yeah.
Thomas Rawls 32 yards, only 15 yards behind, and 5 fewer carries. So,
and he started, correct? Todd Gurley?
I believe Todd Gurley did start.
Yeah, he was starting, not splitting carries with another back.
Yeah.
And yet they're only 15 yards apart after week 1. And that was against the Niners.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm feeling pretty good about this bet for you, Adam.
Yeah, me too. But the idea that they did run the ball a little bit against that defensive front was encouraging, I think, because that defensive line lived up to the billing, I think. They looked pretty good for the Dolphins. And the idea, too, you talked about Russell throwing 42 times and how everybody thinks that maybe the offense is shifting. Well, look at the strength of that team. Their strength is their front four. So what are you going to do? Yeah. You're going to pound it into that front four all game long, or are you going to go after their weakness, which is supposedly the secondary? So this week, the game plan kind of called for going after the secondary, and that's what they did.
And they still ran the ball a lot, which was the point that I'm trying to make. So,
right, still for 32 attempts, yeah, total.
Right. Well, before we get to the defense, I want to see if we can agree on something. Can we send the Dolphins receiver Kenny Stills a game ball? I think we'll have to have it hand delivered because I don't think we'd be.
Don't send
he probably
it.
wouldn't get it if we sent it by air.
I was gonna say, don't send it via air, dude. Yeah, a big drop by Kenny Stills. I mean, that was unfortunate for him. I mean, it was great for us, but wow, just wide open because Earl Thomas blew the coverage. Holy smokes. We'll get to the defense in a second. But one more thing I want to talk about the offense before we go is Doug Baldwin and his performance. Nine catches, 92 yards, and a touchdown. Can we say he picked up right where he left off last year?
Holy smokes. Yes, we can, because he clearly has that connection with Russell. He seems to be able to get open whenever, at any point that he needs to get the ball, which is nice. And Tyler Lockett had kind of a rough game.
He had a terrible game. Couple drops and
on third down too.
On third downs, which is just atypical for him. It's because of the Tyler Lockett hype train. It got to him in week 1. Like it was too much. We talked about this.
Did the Earl Thomas hype train get to him too for this game?
No, Earl Thomas always does this. Like he always does this. They all start up. The defense always starts out like this at the beginning of the year, where they're missing a bunch of tackles, and then they have to have a team meeting like week 3, and then they get it all together and they start tackling again.
But this defense was awesome. I mean, the defense is the reason, and partially due to special teams too, but that was the reason why they won this game. You look at that secondary, Adam, and everybody was performing. Jeremy Lane was flying all over the field. Deshaun Shedd was batting passes down. Richard Sherman was being Richard Sherman, and Cam Chancellor was back to being Cam Chancellor. The only guy out of that secondary that didn't perform was Earl Thomas.
That's exactly right. And I think we can all agree that the real Earl Thomas will show up sooner rather than later. I'm not worried about that. But yeah, he just took a bunch of bad angles, missed a bunch of tackles. It was kind of poor in coverage. I don't know where his head was at, but I think Earl gets overly hyped.
He definitely wasn't the best safety on the field among the two this game.
No, he was not. But he'll bounce back. He'll be fine. But let's talk about the rest of that defense, Brandon, because they did play pretty much lights out that entire game. Really, just to hold a team to 10 points is pretty remarkable. That's the mark of a defense that has led the league in scoring for the last 4 years. But my game ball goes to Jeremy Lane. That dude balled out in the game.
Yeah.
He really did. Early in the game, he was blowing up bubble screens by pushing the blocking receiver back 4 or 5 yards and just right into the ball carrier half the time, breaking up, being just on it with passes and pass deflections. He just really... His timing, everything was locked in. He played a whale of a game. I saw his number popping up seemingly every other play on defense.
Yeah, and then talk about the defensive line. Jaron Reed was a guy that stood out. He had 2 batted passes on the defensive line. He also had a couple tackles in the game, and then you had 5 sacks. Frank Clark in with a sack. Michael Bennett, KJ Wright. You had Cassius Marsh there at the end, just laying out, flying, and causing the fumble on Tannehill on the second to last play of the game. And then you had Averill finishing off the game with a sack on Tannehill.
Yeah, the pass rush was there finally. I know all preseason I was kind of wringing my hands a little over it because I hadn't really seen it. But if we can play like that week in and week out against, and make no mistake, that Dolphins offensive line is a decent offensive line. So if you can do it against them, you're in good shape. And another guy on defense, you mentioned KJ a little bit, just they had a sack, but also 11 total tackles, man. Like, that dude was a monster out on the field. And I know there's other podcasts about the Seahawks that are really down on KJ Wright, but there you go right there. He's earning his paycheck. He is one of the best in the business, and if you don't understand it, it's because he's not the flashy guy. And I'm sorry if you don't understand that some of these gritty guys are the ones that really deserve that money, but KJ earned his paycheck this week, no doubt.
Oh, KJ for sure. Yeah, all over the field, like you mentioned, 3 tackles, 8 assisted tackles, and the 1 sack. So he was flying all over the field. But
the defense felt like it had its attitude, right? The swagger, the punishing, the idea that, no, you're not moving an inch on us.
I thought they might win that game 6-3, to be honest.
Yeah, I thought that was in the wheelhouse, for sure.
And one other thing that we haven't mentioned, the crowd, holy smokes. You talked about being down and kind of feeling not so sure if they were going to make that final drive. The crowd was into it the whole game. And I have to say that for me, about middle of the second quarter, you felt like the offense wasn't moving. You did see it with the defense, but it seemed like that Miami at some point was going to score. And yet I have to think that a lot of people in the crowd felt that, but it continued to be noisy throughout the game. And I think that was a big part of why the defense was able to get it done throughout the third quarter and into the fourth quarter, and then just fueled in the last 3 snaps by the Dolphins.
Yeah, the crowd, it was tougher to tell on the TV broadcast just how loud the crowd was, but they did seem very involved. There's no doubt about that. And the 12s came out. They've been training this offseason. Like, I think most 12s just go out in their backyard and just scream at the top of their lungs, just to try to build their build their voice so they can be just a little louder, for next season. Like, voice training. That's what they're doing for sure.
Maybe they just yell at their dog, I don't know.
Or your kids. I mean, whatever. Whoever you need to yell at.
It's just important that you keep those vocal cords sharp,
right,
for the regular season of football.
Exactly. You need to be ready to go week 1, and the 12s were this week, so hats off to them, no doubt about it. But I was super impressed with the defensive performance. I mean, it's the one thing that kept him in the game. And you kind of listed all of the members of the Legion of Boom who played well. I mean, Deshaun Shedd, he looked great too, man. I mean, and those Miami receivers are decent receivers too. I mean, Kenny Stills is no schlub. Landry's no schlub. Like, I mean, these guys can play a little bit, and they really did shut down Tannehill and company for the most part. I mean, the biggest play they had was a swing pass to Arian Foster, really.
Right. And that was apparently Cassius Marsh's assignment, and blowing that one, but then comes back, and Marsh was the one that got the hand on the ball to block the field goal to keep it 6-3. Huge play by him. Another huge play on defense was that 4th and about 2 inches.
Yep.
And Camp Chancellor comes in and gets the stop before they're able to get the first down. Two huge plays that kept. I kind of joked about Kenny Stills dropping that catch, but without those 3 plays going the Seahawks' way, we're talking about a loss today.
Yeah, and that's the narrow margin of error that every NFL game has, because all the teams are good. This isn't college. There's no Appaloosa State, from City College that you play for week 1 for a tune-up, right? Like, right. Every team in the NFL is good. They are. If you took the worst team in the NFL, take your pick, whichever one you think it is. They could go out and win the national championship undefeated, easy, wouldn't even be close.
Right.
In college football. So, the margin of error is slim. Now, Cassius Marsh made a bunch of plays that kind of helped with that margin of error. You mentioned the sack at the end of the game. You mentioned the blocked field goal. And then also early on in the game, he had a tackle on special teams where he just destroyed the dude coming back.
Yes, he did.
It was cool, man. Cassius Marsh had a whale of a game.
He did. No, and to have a guy like that you can put in, and he filled in the Bruce Irvin role, right? Being that kind of pass rush specialist. Now he might not quite fill in as well as the linebacker spot. And
he may need to work on his coverage skills if that Arian Foster swing pass was on him.
Right, exactly. So, but a huge game for him. Good to have him on special teams. It always seems like he's in blowing up tackles. Good overall showing, I think. On the defensive side of the ball, and I guess Carroll said there were some other issues on special teams coverage-wise, but they got the job done.
I thought special teams looked fine for the most part. I know Hauschka had the PAT blocked.
I don't know if that was the one where Sowell let the guy through the line for the blocked PAT. That might have been the one.
Okay. Yeah, Sowell, not the best game for him. I mean, I believe he had 2 of the holding penalties.
Yeah.
And then, and then that.
But when you spend veteran minimum on a left tackle,
this is what you
I don't know if you can expect anything more.
I just expect less penalties, man. Like, they're just drive killers. They're just.
Was it less? Was it? Did he have fewer penalties than Okun would have had?
Yes. No, he had more than Okun. Okun had fewer penalties. I don't think he got called for 1. That was so maddening to watch.
I'm not talking about Okun now. I'm talking about traditionally.
Oh, no, probably about 50-50. See, that's why it was so maddening to watch Okun with the Broncos on Thursday. And I'm like, keep looking at Jared. I'm like, oh, Okun's due, for a false start, because that's what he does. Nope, not 1. Played great. Great.
I know that made you mad, judging by your texts to me throughout the game.
Golly, man. Just, why? I can't stand watching Giacomini go and play well somewhere. And now Okun. and freaking Carpenter. Like all these guys, they go and all of a sudden now they're good. Like they couldn't have been good for us. No, sorry. There's the guys that drafted you, tried to build you up, but fine. Go play well somewhere else.
Well, one thing I think Miami needs to take note of, we got through the game without the sprinklers coming on. Did you see that, Miami? I know
yes.
That's what messed us up last time. That's why we got the loss in Miami last time, the stupid sprinklers.
And tight ends.
And that too.
Yeah, exactly. But, hey, a good overall game to start out the season with. Obviously, a lot of things to improve on. My initial impressions, and I know, Brandon, you were pleased with the outcome as well. But up next, we have the stupid freaking Los Angeles Rams.
Only 2 teams this weekend scored fewer points than the Dolphins. It was the Bills and the Los Angeles Rams, and we're going to talk about the Rams coming up next.
I picked both those in the pick'em, by the way.
Congratulations.
Yeah, it was great.
Let's get into this game against the Los Angeles Rams, Adam. They were blown out in a road game in San Francisco, 28-0. And I was asking myself throughout the game, is the San Francisco defense that good? Or is the Rams offense that bad? But I'm thinking neither.
I think it was week 1. I really do. I mean, I remember there are definitely some week 1 performances that are always going to be an anomaly. Like I remember Drew Bledsoe lighting up the Patriots when he was with the Bills his first season. They beat him like 42-5 or something, something ridiculous, right? And I don't know that the Bills won more than about 3 or 4 games the rest of that year, and the Patriots just ripped off a bunch of games and went deep in the playoffs again, and crushed them the next time around. I kind of feel like that's a little bit what was going on in this game. Just one of those week 1 anomalies. The 49ers aren't 28 points better than the Rams, but I think neither one of these teams are good. I think that's what you saw. I think you saw 2 bad teams go up against one another, and that was that. I don't know how much you can glean from that game.
Is there such thing as a week 1 trap game, Adam? Like a week 1 trap game where the Rams are looking ahead to a game they actually want to win?
Yeah, I think there is, because we all know that the Rams don't give a catfish about any other team in the league except for the Seahawks.
Here's my thinking. Jeff Fisher absolutely did not want to put anything down on tape that the Seahawks could use in this upcoming game, in their homecoming, their first game in Los Angeles. Jeff Fisher didn't want to put anything out on tape so he can come out, surprise the Seahawks. Week 2 is really the game that Jeff Fisher wants to win.
It's absolutely true. He saves his best crap every single year for the Seahawks. I mean, we've talked about, everybody knows about the special teams trickerations they pull out seemingly all the time. I mean, I think I should, for prep for this, I thought about going back and looking at any new special teams things that had been brought out in like high school games or like college games, because it's probably going to be something like that we'll see throughout the course of this game. Because if you think that a change of venues is going to change Jeff Fisher's approach to playing the Seahawks, you're dead wrong. There's no way. He's gonna pull the same crap in Los Angeles as he did in St. Louis.
What do you think about this venue? Because we saw in the preseason, the Rams fans were packing that place in the preseason.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm sure they'll pack it again week 2, their home opener and all that. It'll be raucous. It's the Coliseum or the Rose Bowl or whatever you want to call it. It'll be fun, but they're going to be real quiet real quick, because the problem for the Rams is that the Seahawks are a legitimately better team than the 49ers. And the 49ers, so if the Seahawks don't beat them at least 28-0, are you going to be disappointed at this point? Like, because then that means by proxy, you're not as good as the 49ers, right?
Well, we're going to find out in week 3 just how well we stack up with the 49ers. But the first 4 weeks for the Seahawks team is going to be challenging. The defensive lines that they take on, we saw that with the Dolphins, it was a struggle. The Rams, despite Aaron Donald having a down game, and no, he's not going to be suspended for the Seahawks game coming up. I know we were all maybe crossing our fingers that he would go even more off the handle than he did in his ejection against the 49ers. If you didn't see that, Aaron Donald absolutely went nuts in the final minutes of that game against the 49ers. And ripped off the helmet of one of the 49ers players. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well, I haven't watched this game yet, so okay.
Oh, well, don't.
Because it's going to be the condensed version. I'm not going to lie.
For one, that game was super boring to watch. And part of it was because the Rams offense just could not do anything against the Niners defense. But I think Aaron Donald, a lot of people were saying that maybe he got thrown out of that game because even he was tired of watching that game. That's how boring it was. And you heard, you got to go check this out. Kevin Harlan, announcer on Westwood One. The most exciting thing perhaps that happened in this game was a fan running onto the field, removing his shirt and running around until he was tackled by security. And Kevin Harlan, the Westwood One announcer, had the most brilliant call of the game as he called out the actions of this drunk guy running around on the field.
Hey, somebody has run out on the field. Some goofball in a hat and a red shirt. Now he takes off the shirt. He's running down the middle by the 50. He's at the 30. He's bare-chested and banging his chest. Now he runs the opposite way. He runs at the 50. He runs at the 40. The guy is drunk, but there he goes. The 20. They're chasing him. They're not going to get him. Waving his arms, bare-chested. Somebody stop
Look
that
out,
man.
Here comes the blue coat,
Oh,
Kevin.
they got him.
Here comes
They're coming
the blue
from the
coats.
left. Oh, and they tackle him at the 40-yard line. Oh. That was the most exciting thing to happen tonight.
I tell you what, that was a great call on your part. That was a great call.
That was the best streaker game call I've ever heard in my life. I love the fact, too, he's like, he's at the 50, he's at the 40, he's at the 30, bare-chested. It's fantastic. And I love Kevin Harlan. I think he's one of the better announcers out there, too. He's got an excitement to him that I really like. He's just an excitable guy. That was hilarious, and that may have been. I mean, you heard. I don't know who his color guy was. But he's like, yeah, that might have been the most exciting part about this game, and I think he's right. I mean, without even watching it, I have.
And the second most interesting thing was Aaron Donald, and he got flagged for ripping off the helmet of the 49ers player, and I think it was Patton, and then he actually. I don't know if he put his hands on the official. I don't think it was anything malicious, but he did get flagged for that too. So by the consequence of getting the personal foul against the player about touching an official, he got the 2 back-to-back automatic ejection for Aaron Donald, and he threw his helmet down in a big hissy fit and ran off the field. But no. Not going to be suspended. I'm sure he'll be heavily fined, though.
Oh, I'm sure he will be. So let's look at this matchup a little bit in some of the ways that these teams match up, Brandan. The hard part about this is that when you're trying to break this game down and make some predictions about how things could go, the hardest thing about it is that you can throw logic completely out the window when it comes time to play the Los Angeles Rams year in and year out for the Seattle Seahawks. Hawk Blogger had a great article of 10 things you should know kind of going into this game. And I'm just going to highlight a couple of some of the things he pointed out. But here's the things that they just make no sense about this matchup. One of the things he brings up, Russell Wilson has been sacked 15 times in our 4 losses. We've been 4-4 against the Rams, okay? Russell Wilson has been sacked 15 times in 4 losses and 20 times in the 4 wins. So the more he's sacked, the more likely we are to win. That's just one of the backward things that this matchup brings. Like, for example, another one that Hawk Blogger brings up. The Seahawks have averaged fewer rushing yards in wins than in losses. That makes no sense. We're 4-4 against the Rams, and during that time period, we're 42-14 against everybody else. Like, it's just... It's unbelievable. So check out that article on hawkblogger.com. It's really great. You'll see some other things that just show the contrary nature of this matchup. But, you start to think about it just straight up as a matchup situation. Case Keenum, is he better or worse than Ryan Tannehill?
He is definitely worse than Ryan Tannehill by far. And
you saw Tannehill struggle against his secondary. I think it's going to be a long, long day for Case Keenum. That brings it down to basically Todd Gurley and if he can run the rock or not. Look, Arian Foster is an older back, but he's far more accomplished than Todd Gurley. Now, that's because he's played for a lot longer, but Arian Foster's a heck of a back, and he looked good. He looked fresh. He looked spry. And they still held Arian Foster like 30-odd some yards. They're going to hold Todd Gurley in check this whole game. And their offensive line, not great. I mean, the Pro Football Focus grades from this last week for them, pretty abysmal across the board when it comes to the Rams offensive line. And I think this defensive line that played super well last week is going to have their way with them. I mean, basically, their only guy that played worth a pinch is Roger Saffold for the Rams. And if you only got one guy that can play, that leaves 4 dudes that can't play. And I like that matchup with Michael Bennett and company coming to town. I think it's just going to be a super long day for the Rams offense. I think the number one thing the Hawks have to look out for is just all that Tavon Austin, bubble screen, swing passes, jet sweeps, things like that. He's the one guy with the speed that could hurt you. He's really their one offensive weapon outside of Gurley, and I'm not even sure Gurley's a huge weapon. I think the sophomore slump is in full effect for him early on in this season.
To me, I look at this game and I think that the Seahawks have to get off to a fast start. I know this last game, and Coach Carroll pointed to it again. It's not how you start, it's how you finish.
Yes, it's about how you play the entire game. I hated that quote. I saw Doug Baldwin make it too. It's also about how you start, because if you start better, it makes finishing a hell of a lot easier. God.
Well, I look back to the 2015 game that the Seahawks played against the Rams. Case Keenum started that game, and the Seahawks started terribly. Zerline gets a field goal to start the game. Then Akeem Ayers had a 45-yard fumble return. That started the game off 10-0. Case Keenum had out of 100 passing yards, 28 of them came to a Kenny Britt touchdown. The Rams started off that game 16-0. It wasn't until right before the half when the Seahawks always seem to put together that no huddle hurry up drive right before the half, and they get a Hauschka field goal out of it. So they didn't start in that game terribly well. They were down 16-3 at halftime, and though they outplayed the Rams in the second half, it was because of that slow start that they couldn't overcome it, and they lose at home 23-17.
Let's think about it in these terms. If you're the Rams and you end up getting down 10, 13 points early, and you have to turn away from Todd Gurley, who's your one of your two big weapons, and your other.
That's what happened against San Francisco. They had to turn away from Gurley.
Yeah, and that's why I felt really good about the Rawls Gurley bet, because I feel like this is going to happen a lot to this team, because they didn't get better defensively; they got worse. And I mean, when you have Cody Sensenbaugh as your next best corner, it's just.
Who?
Yeah, Cody Sensenbaugh. You've heard of him. He's
no, I haven't. I've never heard of that name.
Oh, really?
I watched the game on Sunday or on Monday.
Really? Okay. Well, I mean, their defensive backfield isn't super great. I mean, short of the safety McDonald, I think he can play pretty well. But the whole point is they get down early. They do not have the offensive firepower to come back. So if you can put them in that bind and then start getting them throwing the ball and trying to put the game in Case Keenum's hand, you're going to get a lot of 3 and outs. You're going to get your offensive back on the field, and you can start to wear down the defensive front of the Los Angeles Rams. And I think that's a huge factor in this game, is if the Seahawks can get up a score or two early. Maybe just one score is all it takes.
I sure hope so, because after seeing what the Rams did, you put them in a hole early and see how they come out, because Case Keenum, we saw against San Francisco, he barely threw for over 100 yards. Looking back to that game against the Seahawks, now because they did get up early, he wasn't forced to throw the ball a whole lot. I think he still threw. He just had the one touchdown, no interceptions. So if you aren't forcing Keenum to make passes throughout the game, I think that's going to put him at a disadvantage.
It'd be a huge disadvantage. Now, one thing that we need to also take into account is basically that great defensive line, right? Between Robert Quinn and Brockers and Aaron Donald and Hayes, like that's a solid starting front four. I mean, maybe one of the best in the league. Now, do I look at that front four and say that's light years better than the Dolphins front four? I'm not sure. I think they're probably fairly close when you look at just the talent aspect.
Yeah, it still scares me a little bit considering what we did against the Dolphins front four.
Really? Because I feel like for them being as talented as they are, the offensive line really did hold its own for the most part.
Well, enough to get a 12-10 win.
That wasn't all offensive line problems. That really wasn't. There was a lot more that went into it, whether it was penalties, and then obviously some of those penalties being on the offensive line. But that's something
I'm counting on those still being there.
I think that's something you can clean up. I also think that they didn't get pushed around. Like, basically, they were able to hold their own against that defensive line for the majority of the game. We ran the ball with some efficiency, got over 100 yards. Russell Wilson did have time to throw a lot of times. Now, the coverage was pretty sticky, and so a lot of times that made it a little tougher for him. But I think with Russell Wilson and the ankle injury, you're going to see the Seahawks come out and really pound the rock this game. I think Thomas Rawls is going to be a guy that gets far more carries this game than he did last. I think that whole idea of splitting carries with Michael, you're going to see Rawls have the majority of the workload, I think, in this game in comparison to Michael. He's ready. He's back, and he feels good. And I think that'll be huge for the team. And also they'll do that to protect Russell Wilson in that ankle a little bit. I think some of the zone read stuff, you're going to see a lot less of that. It's going to be, as far as the passing game goes, a lot of the quick 3-step drops and hit your mark. And we saw Russell actually thrive with that for the most part throughout this last game. Hopefully we get a big play or two. Hopefully Tyler Lockett doesn't have the drops again for a game. I think if you have all that kind of combined, this should be a game that is very winnable for the Seahawks, which means we'll probably lose. Because it's the Rams.
Well, it does. The things that do concern me, the defensive line, Russell Wilson's lack of mobility, but you said that they have to counter that with being able to get the ball out quickly. The other thing, this Rams defense, after a 28-0 loss, that defense is going to be pissed. And playing in front of a home crowd for the first time, I don't think we should underestimate that psychological factor to this game. This is going to be different than playing in St. Louis the past few years, because when you went into that building, when you went into the St. Louis Dome, it was dead. You heard about the players talk about how weird it was playing in a stadium that was that dead. And now they're going to have some fuel from the crowd.
I think that's better. I think that's a better thing for the Seahawks. I think the idea of playing in an emotionless, concrete,
because that's just weird,
fluorescent. Yeah, like it takes them out of the game. I think they thrive off of the energy of the crowd, even when it's up against them. I don't know that rattles this team at all. In fact, I think they feed off of it. I think the idea of the energy being up is something that is huge for this team. I think it'd be a really good thing. So I think the idea that they're playing in the Coliseum instead of St. Louis is overall a positive.
I like that. I like where your head's at. That's a positive factor.
Exactly. And the other thing is, when we talked about matchups, like my positive factors, I think Britt is going to hold his own against Donald. I do. He was able to do it more or less against Sue, and those guys are on par as far as talent's concerned. So,
yeah, but if you match him up on Jamarcus Webb, I'm not so sure.
Are we sure we're going to see Jamarcus Webb in this game, or is Ifedi going to be back?
I think, well, listening to what Carroll has to say, it sounds like Ifedi has a chance, but I think it's more than likely that we see Webb back out there. One thing that we didn't talk about late last week, some of the reports coming in were the Seahawks might be toying with the idea of putting Joey Hunt at the center position and kicking Justin Britt over to right guard and forming the offense that way. And it's an interesting thought because, well, it tells you one thing, that they're not super high on Jamarcus Webb.
Yeah.
But
I think we've all realized that after this preseason, right?
Yeah, I think so. Well, he is making the most money of the guys on the offensive line. So I think that's a negative, check mark toward him, right?
Right. The team's going to want to get rid of that as fast as possible.
Oh, yeah.
Can't be paying any of those guys a dime.
On the offensive line.
Can't be having that.
But it's an interesting thought, right? And that furthers along the Britt progression of having another position for him to play. My only question is,
so he'd go back to right guard? Is that the idea here?
Well, he never played right guard. He went from right tackle
to
left guard.
Okay.
And then this would put him at right guard, but filling in a needed spot, because it's all about getting the best five guys out there, right? And I have to wonder, if they were to do that and Joey Hunt goes out there and performs well, and Ifedi comes back, is that when the Britt progression moves him over to left tackle?
I don't understand why you take Justin Britt away from center at this point. Yeah. We found a position where he can play. Yeah. Let's just keep that. Let's keep that going. And he's big for a center too, which is nice. I know a lot of people said Glowinski got pushed around quite a bit in the Dolphins game. I thought the interior line played fairly well. Maybe I'm higher on the offensive line after this game than most people. I just thought, to compare Russell Wilson getting bum rushed for the first 8 weeks of last season compared to where we're starting now at week 1. It's light years different. This was a much better performance than what we saw early in the year last year.
I would agree. Looking back to last year when you had Drew Nowak at center, this line is already ahead of where last year's line was. So only considering how much we saw improvement from the offensive line last year, I'm hoping we build upon that, and when you get Jermaine Ifedi in there and you have that nastiness of the three guys up the middle, I think we're going to be happy with that. And okay, if Gilliam is average, if Sowell is, average to slightly below average as left tackle, Russell, if he's able to get back that mobility, that
did he really lose the mobility in the last game? We saw in that the last drive, he scrambled
the
for
last
like 8
drive.
yards.
He had it back.
Yeah, so I'm not convinced that he's going to be totally. He wasn't immobile in the game when he got hurt. So
when you saw that pass out to the flat where Mario Williams was jumping up and down, and Russell Wilson stood
what else was he
still.
supposed to do though?
Well, he could move, and he didn't move around. Normally when he hands the ball off to the running back, he would kind of normally he runs out as if it were some sort of read option, and runs outside the tackles. He didn't move at all. He was staying after.
So in the areas where it's unnecessary to run, he chose not to run, and so we have a problem. But the thing is when it was necessary to run, he did it and was still effective.
Yeah, I looked at him in that third quarter, and
he was hobbled.
He did get it back, but there were points in that third quarter where he was moving so gingerly. I wondered if he would be able to continue.
I guess I didn't see him as being that dinged up. Like I felt like he moved. The parts where he moved around the worst were like in between plays or timeouts and things like that. When it came down to ball, he was moving around in the pocket. I mean, a couple hitches and things like that. I thought he was fine. He's going to be fine.
I thought it affected him, and I think that was part of the reason too. I mean, physically it clearly affected him because he couldn't move around as well. But even on that pitch to Rawls where it was the fumble, I think it had a lot to do with him and not being able to fully trust being able to put weight on the ankle. You think that play
had to do with Russell Wilson's ankle and not the fact that Glowinski got pushed 2 yards back into him?
Well, that didn't help either. But
what do you mean didn't help either? That was the entire reason that play stunk.
No, that Russell Wilson shouldn't have pitched the ball in that situation.
Well, what else was he supposed to do? Just eat it?
Well, he might have to because Rawls was practically into the line when he pitched him the ball already.
Well, all I'm saying is that's not Russell Wilson's fault. That's Glowinski's fault, man. Like, you can't pin any of that on him. That has nothing to do with the fact that his ankle was dinged up. There's no correlation there. The real cause was the causality of that entire thing was Glowinski getting pushed back 3 yards.
I know how I feel. You're not going to tell me I'm wrong.
I can't change your feelings with the facts.
You can't change my feelings with facts.
That's right. You can't. Yeah, we've definitely learned that. I mean, coming up in an interview with Nate Boyer later, you'll kind of get a sense of that as well. He agrees with that sentiment that it's hard to change people's feelings with facts. It seems like.
All right, coming up next, we're going to be talking to Nate Boyer. But before we do that, I think it's important, that the next game against the Rams, Adam, after we get through this one, the next game against the Rams is going to be December 15th on Thursday night. Mm-hmm. And we saw this week, Adam, the Color Rush jerseys are in.
Yeah, they're here. They're here. And it is the biggest offense to the retina that I've seen since the mustard colored ones that the Rams wore. And that's probably what they're going to wear for this game too, right? The Rams, that'll be the ugliest game that's ever been on TV.
I don't know. Well, the good thing is I heard that the NFL did consult colorblind people before choosing the jerseys, but maybe they should have consulted the people that just prefer not to have eye damage.
That's what I'm going to say. They're going to create more colorblind people by throwing out these action green abominations. These things, and you knew this is what they were going to do, right? When you heard that they were going to do the color rush this year with the Seahawks.
Green. No, nobody was surprised.
No, but it just gives me flashbacks of that terrible. What year was it? Was it 2004? They had the green jersey.
I think it was 2010 because it was Hasselbeck was out, and that was it was against the Bears.
Was it that late?
Yeah, maybe it was 2009, but okay. it was 2009 or 10, and because it was TJ Houshmandzadeh, it was
that's right.
He was in those jerseys, and let's see, Hasselbeck was out. Who was the starting QB that week?
Was it Whitehurst?
No, it was before Whitehurst. It was Seneca Wallace.
Oh, okay. There you go. Seneca Wallace had to wear that above. It's an accent color. Like, it can't be.
It's a good accent color too.
It's a great accent color, but it can't be your main deal. Like,
Well,
I
it's
hope
just for
these
one
are
game.
only.
I'm okay with it.
That's one game too many. I don't need to see it. I'd rather wear the wolf grays.
Yeah.
That's gray is a color, okay? And it may not give you the same rush as action green, but it is a color, and we could have just gone with that.
I think one thing to note, though, is that I think all the Color Rush jersey sales, like the proceeds, are going to help youth sports.
I hope so. They should go to eye clinics everywhere because that's what they're going to need, the extra funding, as we all go blind wearing these things. I love how they're selling them as they're something cool. They're not cool.
I'm okay with it.
All right. I'm not. That's fine. But they're lucky they didn't get in and do better for this nonsense. But somehow they managed.
Well, what do you say we get into our interview now with Nate Boyer?
Sounds good, man. Stay tuned, folks.
And we welcome back to the show former Staff Sergeant, Green Beret Nate Boyer. He made multiple war deployments as a Green Beret and then went on to play college football for University of Texas before moving on and signing on as an undrafted free agent by the Seattle Seahawks right before the 2015 season. And he's got a couple charities going on, merging vets and players with Jay Glazer, as well as Water Boys, which we've talked about in the past. Nate, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having me, guys. How are you guys doing?
Oh, we're doing well. We're talking about a Seahawks win, Nate, and that's a good way to start off the season.
Wasn't it the same score as the last win at the end of the year last year?
In 2013, they opened up the season, that Super Bowl season. They won on the road with 12 points against the Carolina Panthers.
But, I mean, didn't they beat Minnesota 12-10 in the playoffs last year, too?
Oh, was that a 12-point win, too?
Oh, could have been. I hadn't looked that up.
I think so. I think so. And I think they almost came back on Carolina the next week, but I think that's how I could be wrong, but I've never been wrong before, so this would be a first.
Never wrong.
Right, so let's not look it up. We're just going to assume he's right because he's always right.
Well, Nate, you had a chance to. Did you have a chance to watch the Seahawks this weekend? Did you have any takeaways? Because I know. The big thing leading up to that game, there was a lot of talk of what the Seahawks were going to do before the national anthem, and as we know, you were involved with Kaepernick, and that we saw you on the sidelines. It had an open letter in the Army Times to Colin, and so was that kind of on your radar to watch and see, or did you, in your talks with the team, did you already know it was going to happen?
Yeah, no, I did. A few of the guys kind of reached out during the Kaepernick thing. Not the thing, but when I went down to meet with them, and they, a few of the guys reached out and were like, I think that's really cool. You're keeping an open mind with this, and you're willing to kind of listen to them. And we've been talking about some similar stuff and trying to figure out what to do, but we really want to do sort of as a team, and that was all kind of player generated, which is pretty cool. And so they kind of kept me in the loop, bounced off some ideas, and they were just really sensitive to and wanted to make sure that the veteran community would be, not offended by the thing. What's frustrating about this whole situation, though, to me, is that what he's doing has nothing to do with the veteran community. It's just, people are getting kind of sidetracked on that because of what he's protesting, like as far as his taking a knee during the anthem, but that's not the issue he initially brought up. It's sort of a direction that people in the media kind of took it, unfortunately. So,
well, and I don't know if we can say that it's completely with the media, because I know, reading the article in Army Times, I know initially you kind of had maybe a negative reaction toward it, and you see a lot of veterans kind of take that initial negative reaction, and I even spoke with a lot of veterans before the game with the Seahawks, and they were concerned. So it definitely doesn't seem.
Well, but the media put out that they were all going to take a knee together. They that was pure BS. That the media the controversy that they stirred up just because they knew it would get people fired up, and that's what they love to do, So I don't know. It was just like that's not the underlying issue and the reason that he's doing what he's doing, although I don't necessarily think it's the best way to do it. and maybe disagree with it even, but he has the right to do what he's doing. I did fight for that. And at a minimum, it started an important conversation back up, and maybe it's kind of gone sideways a little bit, but for the most part, it's as far as the players are concerned, it's pretty cool to see them kind of step up. I just saw today Brandon Marshall from Denver. I think it was yesterday. He met with the chief of police in Denver, and was getting involved with some youth in the community already. So like he's taking action after taking the knee. So that's pretty cool. That's important. That's the whole point of this thing.
No, it's interesting, Nate. You brought up the media and their role in all of this, and that's something that Brandan and I focus a lot on the show about, is kind of media reporters, their role and how they're doing. Well, how would you say the media has done as far as their coverage as a whole of the entire protest? Because it kind of seems to me what you're saying earlier is that maybe they took the national conversation in the wrong direction by trying to make it more about veterans and things like that, rather than with Kaepernick, him talking, strictly about police brutality. Do you kind of feel like the media is steering us astray on this, or are they reacting to
Absolutely. Absolutely. They're looking for clicks and advertising, selling advertising space. At the end of the day, it is a business, unfortunately. Not everybody involved, but as a whole. And so I've experienced that a lot just with the different, all the different networks I've gone on based on their political stance. They've all either tried to, demonize either Colin and what he's doing, or even me in some ways, or the flip of that, trying to pull me into their side, like I'm their pet and I'm, supporting their political messages. And I'm not doing any of that. And I try to keep as neutral as I can and sort of fend off that stuff. But at the same time, I don't turn down any of those larger networks like that, because I think it's an important message to talk about. And I also want people that are watching those channels to see that I'm trying to, that there are people out there that are keeping an open mind both ways, and understand that there's also a lot of good police officers that do it the right way, and they're getting demonized in this whole thing too from the other side. And that's something that needs to be talked about more. So anyway, it's complicated and frustrating, but more than anything, the action moving forward is what is important and what really matters.
Right. Yeah, Nate, I just would say thank you from all of us as part of the radical middle, is what I call us. The ones
I love
that we
it.
do.
That's perfect.
We all look at this and we say, I get where Cap's coming from, and hey, I get where Nate's coming from, and I get where the veterans are coming from, and get where the cops are coming from, and I think we can figure this all out. So you talked a little bit about action going forward. What do you think the next steps are for somebody like Kaepernick or anybody who is involved in this? Because they can't just kneel forever, right? There has to be action that comes next.
No. Yeah, there's got to be measurable goals that you are aspiring to achieve. That's the key. What measurables do you have? What's the mission's objective here? Setting those, and you can't say things like, end racism and, whatever, because it's going to be around forever. I'm sorry, but it just is at some level.
All right, Nate, we've talked a lot about some of the stuff you've been involved with here lately, and kind of being a part of that national conversation. But let's talk about some long snapping, because I have some long snapping questions for you, Nate, because this is a position that fascinates both Brandan and I. First off, how in the world does the starting center how is he not able to be a long snapper? What's the difference? How does that not happen?
Well, it's a specialized, very highly specialized skill. It takes years, or sometimes weeks in my case, to master. No, it's a different snap. You got to be real consistent. You got to put a lot of zip on it, and you got to be. I don't know. That's your only job, and there's been a lot of guys around the league. I wouldn't just call out the guy up in your neck of the woods. I don't know him, but I'm sure he's very good at what he does most of the time. But there's a lot of guys in the league that kind of have had a couple rough weeks, or a rough week, I should say, long snapping wise. But I'll tell you whose phone is not ringing. It's mine.
Does that disappoint you at all when you see some bad performances, either consistently or even on a one-time basis, and you go, I know I can do better than that guy, and but my phone's not ringing.
Yeah, it is. I'm not going to lie, it's a little bit, but I mean, I also know what I was up against to even get the shot, being as my size and age and experience level. But no, absolutely. I mean, I only played in that one game, but all my snaps were good. So I think it was not fair.
To me, Nate, I think that maybe you're just disappointed because you want to build up that weight again, right? You want to go back to, eating cake and donuts and whatever it takes to get back up to that playing weight, right?
God, no, I didn't even, I actually ate pretty healthy when I did that. I just ate so much, and it was like, it became such a chore. Everyone was always like, man, that's awesome. You get to eat all you want and so much, and there must be so much fun. I'm like, no, it's horrible. Having to wake up in the middle of the night and like force yourself to eat when you're not hungry at all is awful. I'm sorry. It's just, and you feel like a glutton. It's just like, no thanks. I'm back down to like awful. 185 right now. I lost all that weight.
Wow. So, Nate, the other thing I've been noticing about these long snappers lately, and just the position as a whole, like it seems like as far as most of the duties, it's not too bad, but it seems like on field goals and PATs, it's like snap the ball and just try to stand up for as long as you can before somebody just knocks you on your butt. I mean, is it pretty much that? I mean, do you even have a chance to really block somebody? Because basically every long snapper I see, it's snap the ball and then they get knocked right on their ass. Like, that seems miserable, about as miserable as getting up in the middle of the night and force feeding yourself.
You think they get knocked on their ass more on field goals than punts?
It seems like
I feel like it's way more on punts. You don't really see it as much though, because the ball, they'll follow the punter and the ball. You know?
Right.
So, or it's a wide shot. But if you ever watch close up or game film of the snappers on punts, they get destroyed quite often. It's pretty funny. But field goals too. I mean, it happens. But really, you just try to stay low and then sort of lean to one side or the other to help out the guard, depending on which side the pressure's coming from. And I never had that much of a problem with it. My first year doing it, I feel like I got thrown around a little bit, but I mean, I never got absolutely, manhandled. But I mean, that was college football in the NFL is different still. So,
well, you're good enough to make it to the NFL, so you had to be an above average college long snapper too, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I'd say above average is about the extent of my athletic prowess.
You don't want to go expert?
Hey, that's like 7 steps above where I got cut in the 7th grade playing center. So there's really, I don't have anything, Nate.
Hey man, I got cut from my 8th grade basketball team, and I got cut from the baseball team like my sophomore year or something. So,
well, here's a fun fact. Adam and I actually warmed the bench together in 8th grade for basketball. So.
That's true.
That's pretty fun.
Brandon got more play than I did. I don't know how that happened, but he did.
I played defense. That's why.
That's true.
So, Nate, some people, I think, it's been a while since you were brought in as an undrafted free agent by the Seahawks. It's been a while since you started playing college ball with the Texas Longhorns. You kind of jokingly said it only took you a couple of weeks to pick it up, but could you retell the story about how you decided that you wanted to become a long snapper and where you were when you made that decision?
I mean, pretty much it was during spring ball, trying to find a way on the field. I mean, I was on the scout team for safety, and I was just trying to find a way to play meaningful snaps, not just garbage time on kickoff coverage or something. So I noticed that the snapper was a senior and the backup was a senior, and so I just started snapping and kind of messing with it, and I sort of had a knack for it, I guess, from pitching maybe in baseball, and I throw the ball decent, so that had something to do with it. And then I just started tooling around with it, and then I went overseas on a deployment for a few months and took a ball with me, and like all my free time I just snapped and kind of got a real almost like addicted to just trying to get good, because I knew if I came back, Coach Brown told me if I came back and I was doing all right, that I'd be able to compete for the job. And not only did that I came back and I won the job. So it panned out for sure.
What was that experience like playing at Texas for all those years?
was awesome. It was awesome. You know, just or I guess a week and a half ago, I went back there for the Texas Notre Dame game and got to sit in the student section for the first time. And like, it's just so cool. Such a amazing atmosphere. And you sometimes you don't quite enjoy the moment or realize it when you're playing because you're focused on the task at hand. But man, it was cool. When I'm looking back, there's a lot of cool moments, and I remember feeling, you know, when you're in a big game, even if you lost the game, just throughout that constant, you know, the ups and downs, the adrenaline rush, all that stuff is it's exhausting, but it's fun.
Very cool. Well, Nate, really want to thank you for coming back on the show. You know, I mentioned merging vets and players, your organization with Jay Glazer and Water Boys. Anything you want to mention about those two groups before you go?
Yeah, I mean, we're still still doing I'm planning on going back with Water Boys to climb Kilimanjaro again in February. I think it looks like we're going to try to go with a group of vets. So we're sort of planning that out, raise more money for clean water wells again. And then MVP, we've merging vets and players. We're based out of Los Angeles. What we've been doing recently is having about 15 to 20 homeless veterans that live in the Los Angeles area here. A lot of them are in a shelter not far from the gym, actually. They come up on Thursdays and we train at the gym, and then we kind of sit around and have fireside chat, and all the guys share about where they're at, and we kind of try to coach them up and help them find that next identity and purpose and all that. And then we link them up with players that are kind of getting done playing too. And some of them are still playing. They're just in their off season, and they'll be in there and they'll train with us and kind of build those bonds and get that camaraderie and brotherhood feeling back to a lot of those guys that really miss it. So they're both really cool programs that just definitely proud to be a part of.
And folks can follow you on Twitter at Nate Boyer37 if they want to keep updated on everything you got going on. You're a busy guy, Nate. I really I appreciate you coming on the show, giving us some time, and look forward to seeing what's next for you.
Thank you so much, guys. Really appreciate it. Go Hawks.
Nate Boyer, former long snapper for the Seattle Seahawks, that one preseason game against the Denver Broncos. And like I said, really appreciate it. It's good to have him on, catch up, and see what's going on in Nate Boyer's world.
Oh, absolutely. Considering that he had a front row seat to some of this stuff regarding the protests and everything, it's great to get his perspective. I really enjoyed the way that he kind of called out the media.
I'm going to get into it some more with my Do Better, because leading up to this week for the Seahawks, and you heard about Nate Boyer and his disappointment with some of the news stations and how they were portraying everything. I'm going to get into that some more coming up in Do Better.
All right, cool. Stay tuned for that, guys.
We find our Seahawks perched atop the NFC West after a real nail-biter versus those pesky Dolphins. So, what went right? And what kept bubbling up on the wrong side of the ledger? Read this week's 3 and 3 Out to discover why the sounds of violence is actually sweet, sweet music. Speaking of music, can you hear Jimmy? And how about our life in the fast lane? Enjoy this week's 3 and 3 Out, exclusively written for the Seahawkers podcast.
Getting into the second half of the show, I want to thank Nate Boyer for coming on. Also, another big thanks to Dolphins fan and our guest from last week, Sam Marcoux. Adam, I went to the comedy show on Saturday night before the game. It was so much fun.
Yeah, it was a good time.
Sam was funny. All the comedians there. On the website, it only showed like 3 comedians, right? And I thought Sam was opening up. There was a comedian. There were like 6 guys or 7 guys that came on before Sam.
Holy smokes! So you got your money's worth. But I guess he got in because he comped you, right?
He did.
Wow, that's cool.
So, and then stuck around and had some drinks after the show. And
cool. Got to chat with him a little bit.
Yeah.
You had drinks, plural?
I did.
Oh, well, good for you, man. All right. Well, I'm glad that was a lot of fun because Sam was great to have on. So good to hear that went well.
And another thing for Seahawks fans to check out this week, if you're going on the road, if you're going to be in L.A. for the game, for the Seahawks against the Rams, check out the Seahawks Road Crew on Facebook and see what things they have. A tailgate going on Saturday. And just if you want to be around other Seahawks Seahawks Road Crew always puts together something for fans to get to rally around.
Oh, you bet. That sounds like a pretty fun thing. Plus, we need as many 12s at the Coliseum as possible coming up here against the Rams. So get together with those folks. It'll be fun.
But go to Facebook, search for Seahawks Road Crew. It'll pop up. They're going to have former Seahawks defensive end Tyrone Rogers there at the tailgate party on Sunday. The NFL ref, Lance Easley, the guy that made the Hail Mary call, the Golden Tate catch, he's going to be there signing his book, Making the Call. So
he wrote a book about this?
He did.
Keep getting them checks, brother. Keep getting them checks. That's great.
Hey, when you're a part of an iconic moment like that, and something that, because he was a backup ref at that point, is he going to be an NFL ref at some point? Probably not.
No.
So you have to find a way to keep getting them checks.
That's hilarious, man. Well, good for him. No, that'll be fun. You guys should check that out. Bond with your other 12s there in LA. It'll be a good time. I doubt you could do that with a frown. I'm pretty sure about that.
And speaking of getting them checks, we got some donations that came in over this last week.
You guys are awesome.
Some new members of the flock. We had a one-time donation, a KJ Wright donation from Sean Conroy.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah.
Holy smokes, Sean. Hey, thanks a ton, man. So how does that work then for him with the Patreon thing? If he did the one-time donation, like how do we make sure he gets his bonus content and all that good stuff?
Well, for Sean, I'm going to have a code coming his way so that way he can plug in a code into our Seahawkers podcast app. We have an app on iTunes. We have it on Google Play Store, and you can plug a code into that. It'll get you a year of bonus content just by plugging in that code.
Cool. Can I have one of those codes? Because I don't have any of the codes. I can't get onto any of the bonus stuff.
Well, the other good thing, Adam, is that I will get you the RSS feed for the bonus content on Patreon, because now Patreon has an RSS feed that you can plug into your podcatcher, whether it's whether you listen to your podcast app on the iPhone, whether you listen through Pocket Casts or any of those other podcasting apps where you can plug in an RSS feed. You can put that in there, and now you don't have to go to the Patreon app to get your bonus shows.
Okay, so for those of us who don't speak podcast, a RSS feed, all that means is that they'll automatically go to wherever you listen to the podcast. Is that what that means?
There's essentially it's a web link like HTTP, whatever, right? And you take that link and you put it in your podcasting app. And once you put that in there, all the content is always delivered right through that. It's like subscribing.
So it automatically comes to your deal.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. All right. Because most of us don't speak podcast, Brandon.
Well, a lot of people who have figured out how to listen to podcasts, it takes a little bit of work. So
apparently we need to make that easy. Hey, breaking news real quick before we get the rest. Thomas Rawls named week 2 starter.
Hey, like it.
I do too. That's good for my deal.
He was on a pitch count. You could tell.
Yeah.
Just like Jimmy Graham was. He had his 15 to 20 snaps, and Rawls, not knowing if he'd be full speed.
Yeah.
To me, I know it doesn't make me upset. I know that Michael had a good game, but that's going to be a nice 1-2 punch.
You bet. All right. Who else are we welcoming to the flock this week, Brandon?
Yeah. Welcome to the flock to Mike Williamson, coming in with a $25 pledge. Thanks to Mike.
Yeah.
He's gonna get his choice of either do better or better at life.
Personalized
we'll
one?
record a YouTube video. If you have somebody that you want to do better, Adam can deliver a mean do better, and he could put together a video of if you want somebody that to do better, you give Adam the info, and he'll lay the wood to whoever you want.
I'll bring the heat, man, and I'm going to do that for Michael. So whatever he wants, whether he wants a better at life or do better. So I think for the personalized ones, you'll probably deliver the personalized better at lives, correct? And I'll do betters. Is that how we're going to break the workload?
Maybe that's how we split it up, right?
Okay, all right, very good.
I know we haven't worked this out, but
no,
it seems like a good division of duties, huh?
So yeah, for sure. So thank you very much, Michael. That's very generous.
Young Choi comes in with I have a new level, Adam, 12-12. And one thing, I don't know if we've announced this yet, but we're going to do one live show a month.
Yes.
And those at the $12, the 12-12 level, they're going to get in and be invited, and above that level too, invited to our one monthly show. We'll be streaming live. You'll be able to interact via chat, and yeah, it'll be once a month. we're going to do that. And Young Choi, one of the first ones in at the 12-12 level, along with Tim Moon. Welcome to the flock to both of you.
Oh, right on. Yeah, it's great to hear from you guys and to hear from Tim again. And you guys, seriously, this blows my mind every week, man. All of you getting in the flock.
Welcome to the flock to our new members of the Seahawkers podcast, Ring of Honor.
Yes.
We got $6 pledge from Vincent Parker. Welcome to the flock. Another one from Mark Dolphin, a longtime listener. Mark, welcome to the flock. $6 pledge from Russ Hackler. And another one from our former champion of the Pick'em League, $6 pledge. Welcome to the flock to Jack McKenzie.
Oh, awesome, man. Hey, look, so what's cool about the Ring of Honor is on the weeks when I'm not on the road, which have been few and far between lately, I've only been home for like 5 days out of this month. But the weeks that I'm home, and I know with Brandan as well, that's where we interact with a lot of you guys during the game. So we can kind of go back and forth and post some things, and that's where we'll be doing that. So $6 a month gets you that sort of access, which is pretty fun.
And we got an email here from Jack McKenzie. Says, hey guys, sorry it's been a while since I last got in touch, but I finally got my act together and joined as a Patreon donor to finally start repaying you for your hours and hours of hard work and great shows. I'm really looking forward to going through all the bonus content I've missed so far, and that sticker should look pretty good on my car now that I can finally drive. I'm particularly looking forward to winning that awesome Largent shirt and the Pick'em League. As like the Seahawks, I feel destined to finish second in painful circumstances. Stupid Ryan Lindley. Then I have a slight down year, and now this year, storm to victory. Can I blame the offensive line for my picks last year as well? Your work this offseason has been great, so thanks for all the extra shows, especially the series of 16 Seahawks. You ought to know. It was awesome for a newish fan to learn some of the new things about players I definitely heard of, but didn't know a great deal about. The whole offseason has definitely gone a lot faster with my regular Seahawks fix, and I'm really confident this is our year again. With all the shows and now the UK Seahawks podcast as well, I have plenty of Seahawks chat to keep me company on my commute to work. So thanks, guys, and keep up the great work. Now, let's just hope the O-line doesn't stink. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks, man. Well, we appreciate it a ton, and thanks for making us a part of your commute on a daily basis. That's awesome, dude, because working down in Florida and having podcasts to listen to back and forth to the mill, because it was about 40 minutes away, was great. I can see how that helps.
Moving on to the latest entrance of our patron-only Pick'em League. One point I want to make is it's never too late to jump in, because we're going to be doing prizes throughout this, quarterly prizes, random, just drawing prizes. So if you're in the Patron League, it's not too late to get in.
Yeah, get in the Patron League, and also just get in the regular Seahawkers podcast Pick'em League. And the other thing you guys need to get in is the Picks and IPAs Pick'em League. I don't know how many of you know this, but we have another show.
Yes, all 32 picks and IPAs.
Yeah,
where we break down why we pick, who we pick each week.
Yeah, so if you're curious as to our picks and how we got to that conclusion, tune into that. You also get to hear the perspective of none other than Jared Tim. But it's fun. We also review a beer. So what you should do when you're done listening to this, go find the Picks and IPA show and hit the subscribe button. It's good for your deal. You're gonna be happy.
Yeah, you can play along with us there. And judge based on how we pick and how we feel about each pick. You can decide for yourself who you want to go with.
Exactly.
So the new entrants at the $3 level, welcome to the flock to Tom Morgan. And welcome to the flock to Jerry Keeley, who, welcome back. Or he went from the $1 level to $3. So Jerry's joining the Patron League.
Yeah, welcome to the Patron League.
Yeah. Welcome to the flock to John Anderson, as well as Chris Jacobson. And then we got 4 more joining the Patron League. Sergio Montes Gonzalez, Catherine Loomis, Travis Bennett, and Jason Jones. Welcome to the flock.
Welcome to the flock, guys.
And then lastly, welcome to the flock to our new $1 patrons. I'll be sending out stickers soon. They're in the mail. They're going to be here, and I can send them out probably in the next couple weeks. So welcome to the flock to Russell Maiden and Shia Taptara.
Sweet. That's awesome. You guys are great. And that way you get the bonus content as well. Now, unfortunately, we didn't get out a bonus show this last week, and that's my fault because I've been home a total. I counted up through this weekend. It'll be a total of 5 days in the past month. It's been hard just getting out the regular shows, so bear with us. We'll be back on schedule with the bonus stuff next week, but that's on me. But thank you again for your support, and we'll be sure to get you that extra content.
Indeed. So let's get into some emails, Adam.
All right, sounds good.
And this one kind of bridges us from the patron donors, the members of the flock, to our emails. We got one from Ted in Bellevue that says, love your podcast and would like to become a patron. I would be happy to make a once-a-year contribution up front, but the pay-by-month system is an absolute showstopper for me. Is there any way I can become a patron and gain access to your additional content without signing up for the silly month-at-a-time payment system? And Ted, the answer is yes. If you feel that system is silly, there is a way for you to get in on it. And you can go to seahawkerspodcast.com/premium, or we also have our Seahawkers Podcast apps that's on iPhone and on the Google Play Store. If you download the app to your phone, you can get all the premium shows through there. It's a one-time deal, $12, and that'll get you all the bonus shows for the entire year. And that way you don't have to do month to month. Otherwise, if you just make a one-time donation too on Seahawkerspodcast.com, I can even send you a code so you can get your 1 year that way too.
Absolutely. We're going to make sure that you guys get this one way or the other. We thought the monthly thing would be easy for some people, and it turns out it has. But for others, man, having a commitment like that doesn't make much sense. They just want to pay once and get it done. So we've got that option for you too.
Here's one from Caitlin in Seattle. It says, guys, it's Pike Place Market, not Pike's Place Market. Pike Place is a street, not a person. If you want to shorten it, it's Pike Place, not Pike Market. It's never Pike's Market. You're already honorary Seattleite, so I thought you should know this very important information. Love the podcast. Keep up the great work.
Awesome. Well, thanks for clarifying. Now, so what is it that we're supposed to say then?
Pike Place.
Pike Place.
Because we were talking about going to Pikes.
Yeah.
Or
it's not a market, though? I thought it was a market. Doesn't it say market on the sign?
Well, I guess, I don't know. It's never Pike's Market, she says.
Oh, okay. Well, Pike Place then.
Well, we should also tell people that they should go shopping at Nordstrom's, right?
Right.
Because everybody puts the S on the end anyway.
Is it not Nordstrom's?
No, it's Nordstrom.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I say I didn't know. Okay. My non-Seattle is showing. That's exactly what's happening there.
You know my favorite Jimi Hendrix song, Adam?
Purple Rain.
The one where he sings.
Jimi Hendrix song. I don't know.
Yeah, that's not Jimi Hendrix at all.
No, not at all.
No, the one where he sings "Excuse Me While I Kiss This Guy."
Oh, that's a song?
Oh yeah, that's Purple Haze.
Purple Haze. Okay, see, there you go. Yeah. See, I don't know anything about music. That is literally when I go out for trivia with friends and stuff. I'm like, when the music category comes up, do not ask me anything. I don't know one band. I don't know one singer. I don't know one song title.
Don't even know the
lyrics.
lyrics.
I don't know any producers. I don't know any of that garbage.
You don't know Creedence Clearwater? There's a bathroom on the right.
Well, yeah, if you played the song, I'd be like, oh, I've heard that song. But for me to tell you who it is or what year they made it or, who the guitar, I just, no, I got none of that. It's just not me.
Sorry you don't have that skill.
I'm not sorry. I've got other things to clog my brain up with, Seahawks stuff, because that's what's important.
John Anderson via Facebook says, hi, Brandon and Adam. Thanks for the Patreon pick and password. My team, Dunstan Donkeys, picks are in. I can't wait for the new season. If by some miracle I win this league, which by last season's standards, that's a tall order, I'll be willing to swap the signed Largent jersey for Adam's Wolf Gray Rawls jersey. Adam is going to win with his Bet with the Rams podcast. I'm willing to do this as I was fortunate enough to visit Seattle last September for my first Seahawks game, traveling across the pond from Newcastle in the UK. I got to see the Hawks shut out the Bears in Week 3 and visited the pro shop the day before the game and purchased myself a throwback Largent jersey, my childhood favorite player, which I wore to the game. The Bears game was when the 40th anniversary team was in attendance, and Largent and Jim Zorn were signing autographs before the game, and I was able to get my jersey signed, which is now framed and hanging pride of place on my wall. Be greedy to have two, so instead, how about a Rawls jersey signed by the two of you in a trade? Keep up the great work, and here's to a repeat of the 2013 season. Go Hawks.
All right, in the unlikely event that I don't just win this straight out, I'm with you here, man. I'll make that trade because that Largent jersey, again, having two makes no sense. So, but yeah, it would look great next to my Blue Angel Steve Largent poster up here on the wall. It'd be perfect.
So you're willing to concede that if you lose, and John wins,
yes,
that you're in on this deal.
I will make that trade.
See, your confidence is already... You had a bad week. Your confidence is already low because confident Adam from last week probably wouldn't have made this deal. He would have just said, I'm winning this, so what's the point in making the deal?
Well, look, it never hurts to hedge. That's not a problem. But I'm still winning this. I mean, just because I didn't have the greatest week one, I mean, nobody knows the league week one. It takes 4 weeks. Now, if I start being consistently wrong after about 4 weeks, then I'm going to start to panic. But at least 4 weeks, you got to get a feel for these teams. You don't know yet. I mean, the Niners aren't 28-0 better than any other team in this league. They're not.
Here's another one from across the pond from John Davison. Hi, fellas. Rang and rang again, but every time it was engaged, he was trying to call in and leave a voicemail.
Oh, that'd have been great.
I think it was Lines to the USA that were engaged, not your number. I watched the Broncos game and got it right. So, if you could pop the Largent shirt in the post, that will be fine.
No chance, John. That's mine.
I just wanted to wish all Hawks fans, wherever you are in the world, a great season. Go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Hey, good to hear from John again. It's been too long. I hope everything's going awesome over there for him and Barry. They're long-time listeners. They're awesome guys. And but still, I love his optimism about taking home the Largent jersey, even though that it's just not a possibility. So.
After one win. And that was even before Sunday games were in.
Yeah, he talks like Jared, man. One win and they're winning the Super Bowl. Like,
all right, Adam, what do you say we get into some do better and better at life?
That sounds good, man. I'm going to go first with my do better because it's a bit silly, but this is something that truly bothers me, and I can't understand how this hasn't happened yet in the world. So I don't know about you, Brent. I think you probably have a good sense by now that from time to time I can be a bit sarcastic.
No.
It's part of my being. It's a thing. Now, usually the sarcasm is very helpful in my life. Like, it allows me to make jokes with people, allows me to connect with certain people, and it while also, showing a sense of humor about things. The sarcasm usually works out in my favor. But the problem is that the one place the sarcasm never seems to translate is via text. And here's the thing. Nobody wants to talk on the phone anymore because everybody seems to forget that a phone, you know what it was made for? It's made for going, bring, bring. Hey, dude, what's up? And actually talking. A phone still do it. They do, Brandon. They still.
Really? Because my phone, I don't seem to get calls on my phone.
Yeah, you can actually call somebody and talk to them in real time. Like, just back and forth. Instead of a 57 text exchange that you go back and forth to just figure out who you're going to meet at 7:00 at the bar. Like, it's ridiculous. Texting has become a waste of time. I almost solely call people from here on out. But the biggest problem with the texting for me is the sarcasm. So you can go ahead and you can send a text. I can send you a text right now, Brandon, with a poop emoji and an alien face and a GIF of Russell Wilson doing the Carlton. Like, I can do all of that. But you know what I can't do? I can't send a text with italics. See, because what we need a font to denote the fact that it's sarcasm. Because I'm not doing winky faces at the end of every time I'm sarcastic, which is pretty much every single phrase. I need a font, a texting font that denotes that it is sarcasm. And italics is that font. Yet somehow we don't have italic fonts. All we have are these stupid emojis and stupid GIFs and all this nonsense. I want italics, and whoever didn't put it into my iPhone, do better.
See, I feel like the programmer should be able to fix this because I see like programmer speak, especially on Reddit, and everybody uses the /S for sarcastic comments.
Yeah, okay. Here's the thing. We're not all computer nerds. So that's not going to work. I need what's been traditionally used throughout the ages to denote sarcasm, and that is italics. That's what I need. That is not too much to ask for. I tell you what, an Apple IIe computer back in the day could do italics, okay, with its 5.5-inch floppy. All right. I think we can get it done on the supercomputer that fits in your hand. You could basically launch a space shuttle with your phone, but you can't text in italics. The BS.
That's garbage for sure.
Yeah.
Somebody needs to fix that.
This all stemmed from a miscommunication this weekend over something that was supposed to be sarcastic, but did not come across as sarcastic, apparently. And then
it just makes people upset. You sound like a jerk.
Yeah. But I was just trying to be funny. It's tough. It's tough out there. I need italics. Somebody get on that. Somebody at Apple can figure that out. They're smart people.
Who's listening here that's on here that's with Apple? Or maybe you're with Microsoft.
Yeah.
And you can make a Windows phone and Adam will convert.
Oh, in an instant. That would be the one feature that I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense for me.
Yeah. Screw Apple and their iPhone 7 and their wireless headphones that are so cool. Adam just wants an italics font.
I want an italics font, and I want the phone to be no bigger than the majority of the palm of my hand. Like,
so
I don't need.
So you can dial with your thumb.
Right. I don't need a phone the size of Texas, like that I can't even fit in my pocket. It's ludicrous. I don't need a big screen when I'm out and about, because you know what I use my phone for? Calling people and sending sarcastic texts. That's it. I don't need, I don't need all that garbage. Just don't.
Somebody in the Microsoft marketing department is working away now on
for a curmudgeon phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Brandon, who you got for Do Better?
Well, my Do Better this week is a broad one, and I think I have to go with headline writers this week because we give a hard time to journalists, but I want to talk about headline writers. Mm-hmm. I don't think that a lot of people know that in many cases, the person who writes a particular article, they don't always write the headline.
Almost never. Yeah.
Almost never. That's usually some other person. And I want to make that clear because there were a lot of misleading headlines this past week. And we touched on this a little bit with Nate Boyer. But this past week, there were a lot of misleading headlines, and they were all about protesting the national anthem. And at first, I thought this issue was, more to do with a bunch of blogs that specialize in clickbait headlines and articles. But no, listen to these headlines and the outlets that posted these headlines.
Okay.
First one, Broncos linebacker Brandan Marshall protests national anthem in NFL opener. Okay. Protest national anthem. Okay. And then I saw an ABC News story. The opening sentence was, athletes who may be considering protesting the national anthem on the NFL's opening Sunday, the 15th anniversary of 9/11, should reconsider the idea, according to a Democratic congressman from New York.
That's a long-ass title.
This is this was the opening sentence. And the problem with this is a journalist issue right here, because the congressman, I read the article, the congressman didn't say anything about the players protesting the anthem. He was talking about the demonstration during the anthem. Okay, there's a distinct difference, and this is what I'm getting to. Here's another headline that says Seahawks players may protest the national anthem as a team. That was Fox News. Mm-hmm. And this one's NBC News. It says Jim Harbaugh has been critical of Colin Kaepernick's decision to protest the national anthem, but clarified previous comments on the subject. And then another one, this was a Seattle-based publication that said Seahawks players may protest the national anthem. That was The Stranger. So
okay.
From all those headlines, Adam, what do you what do you get from it?
I get that they're protesting the anthem. I mean,
yes.
If I've taken it, yeah. But that's not their protest, correct?
Oh, that's what a lot of people you see opposing it frame it this way.
Right.
That these people are protesting the anthem, and they're not. They're not protesting the anthem itself. If the players didn't want the national anthem to be played before the game, or then maybe that's how they'd be protesting. Then they'd be protesting the anthem, right? Because they wouldn't want it to be played. If they were coming out and saying that, okay, maybe there should be a different song because the racial themes in the third verse, you've seen that going around, then yes, they would be protesting the national anthem.
The anthem itself, right?
Yeah. And that's what all these headlines frame it as if they're protesting the national anthem. All these people they may be protesting during the national anthem, but I think that's an important distinction. Words matter. You're reporters, words matter. And what you're reporting it's factually incorrect, and it needs to be pointed out. So do better.
You're right. That's a lot of people getting it wrong, because the proper headline is what?
Protest during the national anthem.
Player X protests police violence. Isn't that the correct headline? Because that's what they're protesting.
That's what they're protesting.
Right. Yeah. The not standing for the national anthem is the symbol of that protest. So I get what you're saying. You're right. These guys are writers. They're professional wordsmiths, unlike us. And yet somehow we can figure out that they're all getting it wrong. But the one defense of the headline writer is you have very little space to get across a very large point. And it can make writing headlines is difficult. Let's put it that way. I remember doing that in journalism school, having those classes where you had to write headlines. And it's harder than you'd think to boil down an entire article to 5 words. But you're right. If you're going to do it, at least do it right. You know?
Tell people what they're actually protesting. Don't tell them what they're not protesting.
So what you're saying is you want the media to be accurate.
Yes.
You ask far too much, Brandan. I don't know what you're thinking. Because we just heard from Nate right on the interview that they all have their biases that they're trying to push and trying to paint you one way or another as a guest or as the subject of their discussion. Like it's a business. I mean, Nate said that it's a business, and it very much is. I mean, we've talked about this before on the pod, but they're not there to tell you the truth. They're there to keep getting them checks. That's what they're there for. Long and short of it. So just don't believe any of it because they can't get it right.
Well, here's another thing that bothers me about this. And ask yourself, if you're following the media and you see a media outlet reporting that the Seahawks show of unity is meaningless, and they say that Kaepernick and all the other players are doing something meaningful, and you hear the players on both sides saying that they're exact same, that's the same message that they're trying to say. They're doing it in a different way. If that media outlet is doing anything but reporting something positive, because really that's what this is about, right? They're players of the Seahawks, Kaepernick, they're all trying to make positive change, right? They've come out. They're not just doing the protest part of it. They're not just doing the demonstration part of it. They're actually, Brandon Marshall is going out and speaking to people with the police forces in the Denver area. Kaepernick's going and talking with people in the San Francisco area.
Donating $1 million of his own money.
Yeah. And the Seahawks are meeting with people within the city and trying to make things a better place. If the media outlet's framing it as something negative instead of something positive at what these players are doing, ask yourself why they're doing that.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't take a rocket surgeon to figure that one out. And I mean, the idea that the Seahawks joining arms for the national anthem was meaningless, like that was a very strong showing of exactly the point. Is we need to all band to freaking together, not fall apart divided. How is that a meaningless show? On top of all the other things that they're doing, like you just pointed out. And I just can't get it. Yeah, the reason they write that headline and the reason they write it negative is because we all know negative articles get more attention. So you get more clicks, you sell more advertising, it makes your publisher richer, you get a raise as a reporter, and that's how it works.
And those are the people trying to divide other people. Those are the people trying to do the dividing, because you see the article here. Here's one from Jason Johnson at The Root, says Seahawks protest is an act of political cowardice.
This article is an act of journalistic cowardice. Basically, yeah, they just want to get you riled up and to then get you riled up. So you say something that's nasty to somebody else in the comment section and it all just builds and it builds on itself until they get X amount of clicks because everybody shared it on Facebook because they're mad about this section of the article or this guy's mad about that section of the article. And that's what it's all about. I mean, it's a lot like, do you remember the movie The Fifth Element?
Yeah.
Brandon? Okay. Remember when it was Zog? Is that the bad dude?
No,
yeah, whatever his name is, right? The guy that's like working for the Black Orb thing. And he's sitting there and he's talking about creating jobs, and he smashes a cup on the floor, right? And all this stuff comes whirring to life. And he's like, look at what I did by destroying. I caused all this to happen. Like, now I've created all these jobs for somebody to pick up this glass and then put it back together and get me a new one. He's like, destruction and chaos causes growth in the end. And that's a lot of what these journalists are doing. They're causing, divisiveness, and that's growth for them and their media outlet in the end, because positivity rarely sells.
Well, they need to be more positive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, without question, man. Just like us, Brandon. We're looking at this very positive discussion we just had here.
Well, I think it's positive that people should know which media outlets they're getting their information of, and I think a lot of people were surprised at what the Seahawks did on Sunday because their media told them that the team was going to demonstrate in a certain way, and it ended up not being as maybe divisive as the media made it out to be initially. Shocking. And so now you have the response of media outlets somehow being upset, and now what they did wasn't good enough because it didn't rile up people as much as they expected it would. I don't know.
Damned if you do, damned if you don't. I mean, that's basically where you're at here. And I think maybe that's why we've talked about this and said, everybody's right to a degree on this.
I was going to go back to your do better, Adam, because North Korea actually, North Koreans now won't have this issue with their phones because Kim Jong-un banned sarcasm in North Korea.
What? He outlawed sarcasm?
He did.
Like, what a douche. And I say that seriously. There's no sarcasm there. Wow. Well, I'll tell you what. Outlawing sarcasm will be the best thing he's ever done. I promise you. What a jerk. All right, man. So who is better at life than Skip Bayless for you here, Brandon?
My better at life this week is for Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill. And this is, Adam, if you're a Seahawks fan living in or around the St. Louis area, I think I found the place for you to watch week 2.
Interesting.
Because this Hot Shot Sports Bar and Grill in St. Louis says, here's the promotion that they put out. Join us every Sunday and hate watch the Rams with us all season long. Their losses are your gains, as we will offer Hot Shots customers $1 off all domestic pitchers for every TD against the Rams every week. The more they give up, which will be a lot, the more you can win while we root on literally anyone else. We have not forgotten what Stan and his cronies did to our city, so we will have your shot to take a few jabs at them each week as well. Come root on the Rams to lose like only they can at Hot Shots and get cheap beer. It's a win-win.
I love it. That's a fantastic promotion.
I like the idea of hate watching the Rams as former St. Louis Rams fans.
Right. That's something you can all rally around. That and beer. Geez, I hope they make $1 zillion doing this.
I do too. That's why I had to promote them. And so for coming up with such a great promotion, for giving Seahawks fans in St. Louis a great spot to go. And because, you don't, if you're a Seahawks fan, I'm sure they won't mind because you're all going to be rooting against the Rams. Go to Hot Shots Sports Bar and Grill, and you can, for every touchdown, you're getting your beer cheaper.
They are better at life than Skip Bayless for that right there.
Indeed.
All right. My better at life this week is for the Seattle Seahawks. I know. But
on a Seahawks podcast, I feel like you're being homerish here.
I might be being a bit of a homer, but it may not be for what you might think this better at life. But it was announced that they released cornerback Thurl Simon the other day. And basically, to me, this is, again, another showing that when they finally decide that they're wrong about something, they usually try to get ahead of the curve and just get it done. And they've given Thurl Simon all these chances. And then we see somebody like Deshaun Shedd, who starts out undrafted, 2 years on the practice squad, do all that, become the starting corner and a team captain. They saw the growth in one player and they saw the stagnation of another. And they said, it's time for us to cut bait. And they did. And they got rid of the guy. Not that he's a bad dude. It's just, it's business and he didn't perform. So it's time to move on. And I like their ability to admit mistakes. And I think that's been huge, whether that's been Percy Harvin there's been a litany of examples, but that's probably the most well-known one is, he becomes a team cancer and, see you later. I'm sorry we traded a first rounder. I'm sorry we gave him a bunch of guaranteed money, but not worth the headache. Mm-hmm. And not that Thurl Simon was a cancer, but he just couldn't perform and he couldn't stay healthy.
You've heard over and over the team say the best ability is availability.
Yeah. And he couldn't do it. So for getting out ahead of the curve, admitting your mistakes, addressing it, and moving on, the Seattle Seahawks are better at life than Skip Bayless.
Yeah, I like that. And, another part of those moves. He got picked
up by the Cardinals, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, he can go be hurt with the Cardinals, I guess.
Right.
I thought maybe the Saints would get him because you know how they like former Seahawks DBs.
Well, Brandon Browner may have cured them of that.
Yeah, that might be true. But Mr. T back with the team. We didn't mention that.
Which Mr. T?
Will Tukuafu.
He is?
He's back.
Fantastic.
I told you he'd be back.
Yeah, you were right. And he's back. All right.
Like the Terminator. And I heard John Clayton.
He has the most roller coastery contract situation of any player in the league, I think. Well, how many times has he been signed and released by the one team?
Here's how John Clayton put it. He said, because veteran contracts at the start of the season, if they make the 53-man roster, those contracts are guaranteed as a veteran. So with Will Tukuafu, what you can do is you can release him and then sign him come week 2. And now none of his salary is guaranteed if they decide to let him go at a later point in the season. So it's kind of a cap saving measure that they can get out from the contract at any point during the season rather than have the entire contract on the books if he starts with the team week 1.
Wow, that's shrewd. Huh. Very, very smart. See, there's a little thing
shrewd,
that you learn a lot about this GMing stuff. I know we all think we could be the GM tomorrow, but it turns out it's really hard.
Indeed. And with that,
I think there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
It's the end of the show. You did it. One last quick promo. If you're looking for the best place to get your Seahawks gear, visit Seahawkerspodcast.com/fan. You'll be helping to support the show, and you'll get your authentic Seahawks gear from an official partner of the NFL. Once again, that's Seahawkerspodcast.com/fan. Thanks again for helping to support the show.